delete. Thank you all for coming. And again, I apologize for the tight room. It seems like we need a bigger room. um, Before we start, we have a little surprise for you. So those who are sitting, if you can look under your chair and see if you can find a little piece of paper. Pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Michael Dem. He's a fellow engineer, fellow manager. He taught at Santa Clara University. He wrote this fabulous book based on his experience. But more than that, Michael has been really trying to help younger generation be more comfortable at work, and also talk to us about his experiences as he went through his professional life. So I don't want to take away from his presentation. Please welcome Michael Dem.
Thank you, Stoffel. Can you hear me? Good? Good. Okay, if you can't, let me know. Okay. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm very excited. You know, I grew up with 4 sisters, but I have never been with this, in the presence of this many distinguished professional women before. I can't wait to tell my sister what I did today. But I do know there's a few guys out there, so thank you for your support. Okay, I'm just going to say hi to people in RTP and Mexico as well for attending today. So thank you for having me. The talk today is standing out at work. You know, can I have a raise of hand? How many, when it comes to promoting ourselves in our work, take the time, put a priority and a focused effort into actually promoting our work on an ongoing basis? How many of us actually do that? Never, very rare, right? And it's a common experience I face as well. You know, and the question is why? It could be a number of reasons. It could be we're just too busy. You know, our plate is too full. We just don't have the time to do anything else. We can barely get the work done. It could be, you know, because of our upbringing, our culture, the way we are, our belief, that we tend to keep our heads down, get our work done, do the best we can, and let the results speak for themselves, right? And hopefully reward it accordingly. Well, you know, especially in the American business culture, I learned the hard way. It doesn't really work like that, right? If you cannot take care of yourself, it's hard to get other people to look after you. So that's what we're here to talk about, is ways that we can make ourselves stand out to promote our work, our results, our accomplishments, in a way that's tactful, professional, and not rubbing out people off the wrong way, right? And a lot of us are kind of hesitant to toot our own horn for that reason. So I want to talk about that, right? A couple of data points I want to let you know. You know that in a typical professional engineer or professional career, we change our career 5 to 7 times in a career. Statistically, that is statistical data. We change career. I'm not talking job, right? Career. So if you're an engineer, you go from a test engineer to a support engineer, support to sales support. That is the career change, right? So when you factor in your jobs, that's a lot of change in your career, right? And so every time you change job or career, you have a new manager, right? Vice versa, your manager does the same way. They have to look for their own professional growth, and as a result, they do change jobs as well. So when they leave, you get a new manager, right? So my point is, whether by default or intentional, we sort of rely on our manager to do the promotion for us, right? To look out for ourselves, to kind of give us a recognition that we deserve. Well, you know, I don't think that's in the best interest for us to do that, to rely on somebody to do that, especially if we can't count on how long are we going to have that person. In my 25-year career, I had 14 managers, half of whom were women. The shortest stint was 3 months, and the longest 3.5 years. And so I don't think I'm that unusual. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. So here I want to talk to you about how do we go about promoting our work, our achievements, results, so that we can take care and we can manage a career growth. Okay, sounds good. Okay, we have a lot of material to cover today. And, each one of these topics can take an hour to talk about. So I'm going to try to cover all of them in the 45, 50 minutes that we have, and make sure that we have time for questions as well. Right? So we'll talk about my book. A lot of what I'm talking about today is in my book. And so this morning I posted a lot of materials on my website, and what you'll see on the slide. You're welcome to go in, download the material, and read if you're interested in your spare time. Okay? All right. So let's talk about how to get people to listen to us. Right? I put this picture because my son doesn't listen to me. Right? Right? Don't tell me what to do, his favorite word. But how many times we're in meetings where we would hear someone say, that wasn't what I meant. That I didn't say that. I hear it from my wife, who would say, you're not listening. Right? So I don't know if it's a man thing or engineering background, where if she starts telling me about her problem, in my head I'm thinking, okay, we got to solve this. What's the solution? Right? So, okay, honey, why don't you do this and this? She said, no, I'm not looking for it. I thought you did. So, I'm improving. It's a work in progress. Right? So and we've only been married for 25 years. Okay, so in order to get people to listen to us, we first have to listen to them first, right? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's true. Right? If we listen to people and we seek to understand what they're saying, and to make sure that we really understand what they actually mean, it does a couple of things. One is it lets them know that, I'm listening to you. Right? It should make them feel good to have somebody to listen to them. And secondly is that I really want to understand what you're saying so I can respond appropriately. Right? So in that process, they're much more apt to listen to us when we have something to say. So a good way to do that is just ask a lot of open-ended questions. Right? Ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand. I just heard you say A, B, and C. Did I hear correctly? And then that helps you think and you can respond appropriately. Okay. This is pretty fundamental and self-explanatory. I won't go into too much about that. But in a work environment where teamwork and collaboration is so prevalent nowadays, and it requires the ability to earn trust and to build credibility for people to listen to us. Right? It makes it a lot easier. The only comment I want to make here is it takes longer to build credibility and trust, especially if you're new to a team or you just joined a company, than to keep it. It's easier to lose the trust and credibility. So the point I want to make here is it's sustaining. You have to be able to sustain credibility and trust over time. So, meet your commitment, and if you're not sure you can meet it, don't commit to it. It's better not to commit than not to deliver. Right? I talked about collaborating. We all work in teams. It's much more so than when I started 25 years ago. So it requires the ability to, are we a good team member? Not only that, but are we willing to go the extra mile to get the team achieve our goal? And if people can see you do that, they will have much more trust in you, and that they know when you're saying something that you have the team interest in mind, and not not you're out for number one. So I'm going to spend a bit more time to talk about this. Obviously, our manager is important to us. Right? They have a lot of, I don't want to say power, but certainly influence in our career growth, our promotion, our pay, our job responsibilities, project-wise, and they're like a window for us to see what's going on in the company. Right? So it's important to make sure that our work, what we do, aligns with their priorities. If our work is not aligned with their priorities, they're less interested in listening or hearing to us. Right? I worked a lot with people, and I would hear, my manager doesn't listen to me. I'm really frustrated. He doesn't listen to me at all. Then I have to find out why is that the case. You can be on the same page with your manager, but then things change. Sometimes his priorities or her priorities can change because their boss's priorities change. And sometimes, they forget to tell you. It happens, they forget to tell you. And so you have to be the way to do it is, what I would say, like open communication and frequent, regular communication to talk to your manager just to make sure that, okay, what am I doing? Is it still good? It's still important? It's still aligned with your priorities? And if it's not, let's talk about it. Right? And, a lot of times I've had cases where, my client would say, I have these priorities that I think are important, but my manager doesn't think that. What should I do? Each case is different, and it depends on the situation and what have you. And we have to kind of look at case by case. And I mean, obviously, we don't have time to do it here. I do cover some of that in my book. In general, I would say open communication, direct communication, and seek to understand. Sometimes he doesn't like me, or he wants me out of the team. Don't assume the worst. Seek to understand. I like working for you. I like what you're doing this and then this, but I have this kind of concern I have, and I want to make sure that I understand why, and so we can make sure that we can work well together. I noticed a few times that you don't seem to listen to me, and for example, right, give an example. It's important, and then you give your manager an opportunity to explain, right, why it could be he was having a bad day, or is it a pattern? And then you can get to the root causes. As an engineer, to solve a problem, we have to find root causes, right? And then we find solutions. So that's what I would tend to recommend people to, seek to understand and find solutions, and don't assume the worst. It may be so, it may be the worst, right? But we'll handle it when we get there. But don't let that be your first step. Right. A good way to find out how to go about promoting our work is learn from the people who have done it, from the people who are successful at doing it and are doing it today. So, I lost track of count, but I managed quite a few people in my career. I was in engineering, operations, marketing, business analytics, business strategy. So I managed a cross-functional team throughout my career. And, half of my employees were women professionals. And so I've been fortunate that I had a lot of talented employees, and I promoted a few. And so through that experience, I started to capture what are some of the key things that they exhibited, that they did that kind of helped make them stand out. And as part of researching my book, I talked to a lot of executives and some of these people, and just to learn, right? So what did you do that worked? What did you do that didn't work? What suggestions you have? So I want to capture that here and kind of share with you. Okay. So first of all, they are really good communicators. Communication skills are very strong suit for them. And it's not surprising, because I would bet at Cisco, if you go to presentation and called customer briefing or what have you, and you see these people talk, you can kind of know, okay, who's standing out, who's not. And they make a point that they embrace the opportunities that they can have getting in front of executives, managers, customers, partners, that they can have an opportunity to present. And so they look at that as an opportunity for them to shine, to show their skills, right? And in the result, earn credibility. And so they never shy from those opportunities. They volunteer. They embrace the opportunity to do it. And they're not afraid to take risks. Right? To them, they know, well, okay, I have an opportunity to present in front of a really important customers. And by the way, my boss's boss is going to be there, so I better not screw up. So they make sure that they prepare really well, right? Because that's their opportunity to make an impression. You know, I've been in a bunch of promotion meetings where we talk about whom do we promote and their accomplishment and what have you. And depending on the position, executives can attend. I had a situation where I was a senior director, my boss, VP, and his boss were in the meeting to talk about who to promote. And so after we go through their accomplishments and what they've done and our recommendations, so we listen to the senior VP, and more times than not, their comment had nothing to do with the result, the deliverables. They would say things like, Julie, I remember Julie in a couple of presentations that she did, I attended, and a customer briefing that I attended, and she knew her stuff. She came across very confident. She answered questions really well, and she was great. And I thought she would be a good candidate to get promoted. Or they would say something like, "Oh no, Joe, I don't have a lot of interaction with him, but what I remember was he didn't seem that confident in the times and meetings that I was with him. Seemed kind of timid, not answering questions really well. So I'm not sure." Right? Either one of these two people can be promoted because as a manager, I know the capabilities. But who usually gets promoted is Julie. Because it would be a very uphill battle for me to go recommend Joe, especially given the feedback from the executive. So if you ask me what's the number one skill that would determine how successful we are at work and in a career, I would say communication skill. We all can learn it. Some of us are natural speakers. I'm not. But we can always learn and improve. And, I mentioned earlier about we're changing career 5 to 7 times in a career. We could be doing something very different. I did 7 different things in my career. But the one skill that's transferable is the communication skill, right? That doesn't go away. And then the more you advance in the company or the higher position you take in the company, the more important that becomes. You have to have communication skills, especially in our environment. So that's what I highly recommend. So I'm sure companies, Cisco is probably no different, that they have classes on communications, on presentation, how to conduct yourself in meetings, how to facilitate meetings. Excuse me. So I would encourage you to take advantage of it. I understand. I was in your shoes. I just don't, I just don't have the time. I can barely do all the stuff on my plate. I can't spend a day to go to class like that. So we ended up putting it on the back burner, right? And which gets pushed later and later, and sometimes it never happens. But, invest in ourselves, because it'll reap benefits on an ongoing basis over the long run. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but as part of team working, I'm sure you've been trained and coached a lot on how to give and receive feedback, right? So, which is an important part. The thing that's good about giving feedback is if we're open to feedback, people will be open for us to give them feedback. So the only suggestion I give is focus on the issue at hand and not personal stuff. Give them examples. If you get feedback that you don't like, try not to be defensive. Instead, put the onus back on that person and ask for specific examples. So can you give me examples of why you think that? And so it becomes much more tangible for us to something that we can act on. I have a friend, his name is Evan Lowe. He was a former mayor of Campbell, city of Campbell. It's no city of Campbell, really nice city. He became the mayor when he was 23 years old. Probably one of the youngest mayors in the country at the time. And this is back in about 10 years ago. He is California Assemblyman right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him as the governor someday. He has a lot of potential. So I, as part of teaching my business class, I would invite him to go and speak to my students. And so he talked about his career, his background, his life, and about communications. So a couple of points that he emphasized. One, he was not a good speaker at all. He was kind of pushed into running for the councilman and eventually the mayor. When he became mayor, his chief of staff hired him a coach to coach him for 1 year on how to communicate to people, how to do public speaking. And so his message was, one, improve and work on your communication skill, and two, don't forget to speak up wherever you are, in meetings or in a conversation. So he said, he said, half of my staff are women, and they tend not to speak up as much as my men. So I have to constantly encourage, to speak up. And he said, if you don't speak up, nobody knows you. You're invisible. And so he said, don't be afraid. You're thinking, all right, I'm going to say something stupid. I'm going to ask a dumb question. He said, most of the time, we never ask dumb questions. We just think we ask dumb questions, but that's not the case. So he said, speak up, make a point. If we're not comfortable speaking up in meetings or public speaking, he said, make a point, force yourself to speak at least twice in a meeting. So he said, think about what you say before the meeting. So force yourself to speak up. If you don't know what to say, ask a question. He said, ask a probing question is always a good technique to use. So that way, especially if you're new to the team and new to the company, people know who you are. And so the next time you pick up, people, I know, and they're comfortable talking with you. Okay, so that's all I'm going to have to say on how to listen to people. So as I mentioned earlier, the best way to learn how to promote ourselves is to learn from the people who have done it and are successful at it. So I want to share some of that with you now. I mentioned communication skills, so I don't want to beat a dead horse on that, right? But they are really good. And what they do is they seek opportunities to present, to speak publicly. They have a presence in meetings where they can facilitate and get people to listen to them. And a lot of it is they come with certain credibility, right? Because you see them in presentation, you see them in staff meetings, you see them talking to executives, and they seem to have the ears of their managers or the executives. So they have certain credibility to begin with. But what makes them good communicators, in my opinion, is their ability to listen. They're not the ones who talk all the time, and sometimes we see those two in meetings, right? They dominate meetings, they constantly talk, and then after a while, people kind of just tune them out. But the good ones are the ones that listen to what you say, ask appropriate questions, and then respond appropriately. A lot of time we talk about quality versus quantity. So I'm sure none of us don't have enough work to do. Right? We have more work than we have time for, or so we think. What makes them good is their ability to prioritize and focus on the important projects, on projects that matter to the company and matter to executives, that they align with their priorities. One thing that makes them good, I think, is negotiating. They have very good negotiating skill. I'll give you an example. I worked for Hewlett Packard. I was a director in product management team. I had an employee, very talented, graduated MBA from Stanford. He's the second in command of Australia in the insurance company. Very talented. And as a manager, we tend to rely on people that we trust, right? That we know that we'll get the work done. So that was my tendency. I would come to him and say, like, Tony, I have this thing that kind of urgent. Can you work on? And then one time, he sits down with me and he says, Michael, let me show you what I have on my plate. So I have A, B, C. This is who I am. This is what it's going to take to get done. So help me help me prioritize. So you tell me how important is what you're asking me to do versus what I have now. If it's as important or more important, I'm happy to do it. But then we need to kind of knock something off or put something in the back burner for a while. So help me. That was really smart. Right? It's his way of saying, no, I don't want to do it. I didn't realize it until later on. And then I used it myself. Right? But he used it in such a way that he came across as a team player, as a problem solver. It's not like, oh, I don't want to take it on, get out of my face. So, but it made me feel good because, okay, now the ball is in my court. I have to think about, okay, is that more important? And so I looked, okay, you know what, Tony, it's not as important as I thought, so I'll get someone else to do it. But I didn't feel bad about it. I felt good about it because he made me a part of my decision making. So whatever decision that was made is a win-win. So he got what he wanted, and I was happy with the decision. So thank you, Tony. I always remember that example. Okay. I mentioned about problem solver. So, managers, I'm sorry for generalizing or stereotyping here, but managers love what we call low maintenance employees. You know what I mean by low maintenance? Right? Or someone who don't come to us with complaints all the time, kind of take a lot of time. So they're good at, and they're fine with bringing problems. They're happy to bring problems to you, but they give the manager possible solutions, options. Right? So I have this problem, I'm thinking about, what do you think? We're happy to give our input, to give our feedback, and they're very good at doing that. So, it's just something to keep in mind that it's not that managers don't like when you come to them with problems, but try to come with them with some idea, that they can think about and have a discussion with you. All right. Let me spend a little bit of time on this. So, how many have a negative view of politics, in specific workplace politics? I know I did. We think of it as, kind of semi way of doing things, brown nosing, kissing butts, throwing people under the bus, stabbing their back to get what we want. Right? Well, we do it all the time. We do it every day at work. When you talk to your team and you want to persuade them to go with strategy A versus strategy B, what do? You try to convince them, you try to influence, you try to get people on board so that they agree with you, right? That's a form of politics. Politics is, the dictionary defines it as the use of influence, power, and network to achieve the goal of the organization, the individual. Right? That's all it is. Now, we can practice good politics or bad politics. It's up to us. Right? But we tend to remember or notice the people who practice bad politics. I'm sure all of you at one time noticed that I cannot believe that person got promoted. I did way more work than him. Right? All he does is talk. He got promoted. Right? That's not fair. It sucks. Right? Have you had that experience? So it does happen, but I'm here to tell you that it's not as common as we think. And over time, if that person keeps doing that, that's a ceiling. And eventually, time will catch up, right? And the emperor without clothes will be exposed. It may take a while, right? So let me tell you a story. I told very few people about this. I'm not even sure I told my wife about this. When I was at Hewlett Packard, I was a senior director. I was nominated and selected to attend a 2-month, they call it accelerated executive program. 2 months straight at Stanford, no work, you're going to school. And then part of that is after you graduate, then they're going to place on a executive program where you get trained to become like a VP running, department and organization. So after the program, I went home. 2 weeks later, I asked for a leave of absence. So I actually took 1 year off. Right? I took 1 year off. There were other reasons, but one of the main reasons was I didn't want to deal with the politics. Right? How stupid that was that, right? I turned down an opportunity to advance in my career because, number one, I didn't like the politics. I didn't think that was good. I had to compromise my values, and I didn't think I would be any good at it. I had no confidence. Right? I didn't realize the fact that if my manager nominated me and his manager approved and the exec team approved, like, who am I to disagree with them, right? But I took a year off. I came back. I never went for the VP opportunity, and then I decided to do something else. But that's a different story. So what I'm saying is that if you're in that situation, don't make that mistake. If you don't want to be promoted, do it for the right reason, and don't think of politics as the reason I don't want to do it. Okay. So what do we do? How do we handle workplace politics? So I have a chapter in my book. I talk in details about that. No, actually, I don't have it in my book. I was just writing it a couple of weeks ago. So I posted it on my website. You can welcome to take a look at it. But it's all about collaborating, using your influence, sometimes your credit, your authority, and get people to get on your side, and aligning with executives with their priorities, knowing where the company is going to get things done. I'll give you an example of good politic practice. Right? I was in marketing operations. One of my peers, a senior product manager, actually a senior director managing a product management team, he wanted to do this new product program so bad, but he needed $2 million to do it. It was not in the plan. It was not budgeted. And so he tried so hard to convince his boss, and she said, no, it's not in the budget. We can't do it. And she was kind of new to the organization as well. And so said, no, can't do it. Don't want the money. Right? And he tried. Couldn't do it. So he came and talked to me. I said, Steve, have you talked to, who do you think she would listen to? If she didn't listen to you, who do you think she would listen to? She said, I don't know, maybe marketing center. Marketing center are like sales center in different regions. Said, where did she come from? She came from the field. She was in the marketing center. I said, okay, Steve, go talk to the sales manager about what you have in mind and see what they think. And so he went and talked to them and came back and told me, they like the idea. I said, why don't you set up a meeting, invite the regional manager, invite your boss, and let her hear it directly from them. And so he put a meeting together in the meeting. So long story short, at the meeting, the next day she said, okay, you have the money. She had no money before. But she knows who the influential people were because she listened to them. So when they tell her that this is really important, Eileen, we need to do this. These meet our numbers. Thank you. So that's a good practice of politics, right? There's nothing dirty about it. Would you agree? Okay, so let me move on because I'm running a bit late. So, I read through some of the questions that you submitted to Ray, and one was, I'm a bit introverted. I don't want to toot my own horn, but how do I get recognition? The trick is get other people to do it for you. Right? It's like other people's money. Use other people to do it for you. I'll give you an example. And this happened by accident anyway. I didn't even think about it. So one day I got a call from the sales people out in New York. Said, I have this we had this customer, we're at risk of losing them, very big, I think it was like J.D. Morgan or some Chase, to a competitor because they seem to be sold on this new technology that we don't have. So can someone come out and talk to customers? And our lead architect was on vacation. So I said, okay, I'll do it because I kind of know something about the SAN space at that time. So I went out to New York and talked to customers, spent a day with them, just to understand what their problems were, what they wanted to do, you know, and compare the different technologies. Of course, I wanted to sell Hewlett-Packard, but I realized I had to make sure I'm objective enough that I come across as credible, that they understand, okay, there's a pros and cons on each of these technologies, but what makes sense for them, right? So I was done, came back home. 2 days later, I got an email from the VP of sales in North America. He sent me an email message, copy my boss, copy his boss, copy the VP of marketing. And basically, they thanked me for helping the team, and the customer, you know, after a lot of discussion with them, was willing to wait. The customer extended the contract for a year. So I didn't ask them to do that. I thought, well, you know, that's a fantastic way to get recognition, right? When somebody recognizes you. So I said, that's a great way to do it. So as we go out and talk to people, and as a team, if we go out our way to help team members to get the work done for a team, remember those favors you did. It's not the main reason why we did it. Right? We did it because we wanted to make sure that the team accomplished its goal. But people like to reciprocate. So keep that in mind and get other people to promote for you. So in the month at the all hands meeting, the VP of marketing gave me an award for customer service or something like that. And a lot of us, we don't think about that, right? But it's a bullet on our resume. It's something that we can give to our manager, say, look, I've done something good, so they can keep in mind when it comes time to promotion or pay raises and what have you. So it matters. Okay. I'll just not talk about this very much. So collaboration is a skill. Right? The stars, they strive for win-win and not for number one. You know, that's for me. One skill that they're good is they tend to be pretty giving people. They're very generous of their time, and they would go out their way to mentor people. A couple of months ago, I worked with this lady. She's a software engineer, 15 years experience, Amy. And she wanted to switch jobs, but she hasn't had a lot of success getting through interviews. In her words, they were disasters, the interviews. So I was working with her on how to interview and that sort of thing. So I asked her, give me an example of a time where you went out your way, not a part of your job, but you did something to help the company or your team. And she thought about it for a few seconds and said, I don't have any example. Amy, you have 15 years of experience. Right? Give me one. And she said, oh, you know, yeah, this one time on this project, we had a junior engineer come on board, very green, didn't know what he was doing, didn't know the tool, didn't know the technology. So I decided to spend my spare time after work, doing work with him, get him up to speed. I trained him on how to use the tool, on technology, and the industry. So after a couple of months, we were able to get up to speed and concentrate. I said, oh, fantastic. Who knew about that? She said, no one. I said, you didn't have your boss? He said, no. I said, did he thank you? She said, yes, but did he let his manager know that you helped him? He said, no. I said, why? He said, I didn't think that. He said, I was just doing my job. He said, to me, it was just doing my job. He didn't think about how that can have a positive impact. They said, well, Amy, is that good for the company? Yes. Did I help your team finish the project on schedule? She said, yes. What did it say about you? That you're going out of your way to help somebody get up to speed, to get things done. It says you have a big picture, right? You see what's good for the company by helping this person. So that's a great leadership skill to have. Remember that. Okay. So we have how many minutes left? 15. Okay, I'll do 10. So let me share with you some of the practical, impactful ways that you can put in practice to get noticed, to stand out. Okay. Some of these take longer than others to do, but let me go through them. Okay. I talked about visibility before. So the key word here is visibility. You have to get visibility. You have to be visible. You have to get visibility with the key stakeholders. So who are the key stakeholders? Your boss's boss, your team managers, other executives, depending on your level, your position, your job. Who are the decision makers? Right? Ultimately, it ends at the decision. Who are they? Sometimes it's not the CEO. Sometimes it's not the head of the business unit. Sometimes it's your boss's boss. So you need to know who they are, and you have to get in front of them, get visibility, get in front of them. So if you work on a team, you have team projects, right? You have team reviews, you have meetings where you share information, right? And if you're kind of shy about doing presentation or public speaking, try to get out of your comfort zone, volunteer to be part of the presentation, to present, to attend the meetings if you can. Even if you don't have a role in it, think how you can participate, how you can add value. A lot of times I ask my boss for me to come along with him to his staff meeting or to other meetings with senior managers. And so why? So I could see how they interact with one another. How they make decisions. A lot of times my boss has a big role in the meeting, so that he has something to talk about. And most of the time, and some of the time, it's about stuff I was working on. So I'm able to help him add value when he talked about the project that I've been doing. So that's an opportunity to get visibility. So don't shy away from those. Seek opportunities. Right? And I talk about like recognition awards and stuff like that. Find out what the process is to get nominated for award, whether it's Teamwork Award, customer service, quality, innovation, what have you. Every company has it, right? And it's not, like self-serving to find out, but find out what the process is. And if you've done something really well and awesome, ask your manager, is that worth getting nominated up for? Sometimes I've seen managers that go around and say, I need to nominate somebody. What you've done, right? Holy cow, that's a great opportunity. I've done it. Okay. So I talk about having other people promote you, right? Remember when you did something out of your generosity, your time, to help other people, to help the project, to help the team. Keep that in mind. And a lot of times people would volunteer to give you the credit, to let your manager know. And if they don't, encourage them. Remember when we did that, you mind letting my manager know? So, and I've got more freedom to work with other people on other things. Of course, they wouldn't say no, especially if they need your help later on. One of the best things that happened to me was in the second half of my career, I got a mentor. Before that, I never thought about it. Didn't give it a second thought. But I realized having a mentor is really important. How many have mentors? Great, that's really good. All of us should have mentors. Mentor is so great at helping you, not only giving you the recognition, but giving you advice on career growth, right? Getting you visibility to other executives in terms of how they work, letting you know about opportunities in the company, can help provide you guidance on a business issue that you may have. All of that is, you can't get it anywhere else. And then the last thing, of course, is they are a great resource to give you opportunities to get visibility. They can, my mentor would usually take me to the executive team staff meeting just for me to sit there and see how they interact and how decisions are made, And then through that process, I kind of know, this person is really important. That person doesn't seem to get a lot of people's attention. And so I can understand like the politics at work, you know, and it's really fascinating. You have a chance, do that. Ask your manager to, if you could attend his staff meeting, but his boss's staff meeting. I mean, of course, if they're talking about something important they don't want you to know, then you can't come. But otherwise, right, be there so you can observe and see what's going on. So you may ask, how do I go about getting a mentor? Well, you know, your manager is a good resource. You've attended a lot of meetings. So in these meetings, you kind of have a sense who's good, who is influential, who has the respect of the people in the room. And you have an idea who they are. So take a note of that, you know, and 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and then find ways to have one-on-one with them, have lunch with them, ask them. They may say no because it's too busy, but if you ask 2, 3, or 4, or 5, then eventually you get one. Right? Because executives love to talk to employees because sometimes they feel like they're kind of out of touch with what's going on. So they want to talk to employees, what's going on. And they would love to be a mentor, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit as well. So if you don't have one, I would encourage you to do that. Okay. Couple of quick things real quick. One of the good ways to establish yourself is become an expert in something important in the company. Right? I would guess every company has gaps, things that we just don't have enough bodies to do. We don't have enough IP resources to take on. Right? And sometimes things that we don't see today but may matter in the next 2 years. Years back, I had somebody on my team, and she was a business analyst, and somehow she got into the thing about data analytics, right? It's data science now, right? And so she told me about it, and she said, "You mind if I spend time learning about this?" I said, "Yeah, as long as you get your job done, sure." And so she spent time learning about data analytics, learning the tools that are available, that are coming up, and how to use them. Learn how to use them, and so she became an expert. She would go around the company into different departments, different business units, and talk to people about it. She would train them. She would help them use it. And so she became widely known as data analytics expert. So, you know, if you know some of our upper managers or executives, if they have important meetings, a lot of times they don't have a good sense of timing. You know, most of the time to them, like, when you need to get this done? Oh, today. Right? And so they would go to the person they think can get done the quickest and the best job. So they would go to her. They would go to why? Can you do this? Right? So she established herself as the expert in data analytics. You know, it doesn't have to be technology. It can be any other area. When I joined the company, I noticed the person was giving a lot of presentation to customers. So they would ask me, like, what does Tom do? He would say, like, oh, you know, I don't know. I've been here 2 years. I don't know what he does. But he seemed to be giving a lot of presentations to customers. And so he became known as the marketing company evangelist. He goes out and talks to customers. And that's a really skill to have. So think about that, okay? Similarly, important projects. Your mentor can help you with important projects in terms of sometimes projects are cross-business units, different functions. So sign up, do them. Make sure that, number one, you can deliver, but not at the expense of your own core job responsibilities. Okay? And lastly, we don't have time to talk about this, but if you could become your manager's trusted partner, your life is so much easier. Your work life is so much easier. You can get a lot of things done. And so I don't want to go into this a lot, but one of the things is find out their weaknesses. Everybody has them. And some of them are very willing to tell you. Right? If you ask a question like, you know, how can I help you? I want you to help you succeed. Are there things that I can take off your plate? What are things that I can help you? They could tell you. Some of them anyway. So think about that. Okay? So that's pretty much wrap up. Sorry, I kind of went kind of fast. I just want to wrap up a couple of things. One is do a self-assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. What you can help. Ask your friends, your coworkers that you trust. Give your frank feedback. Right? Where are you good at? Where you're not? What do you need to work on? With respect to what we talked about today. And then decide for yourself, prioritize which ones of these are most important to me that will bring the most benefit I can have time to work on. And develop a timeline, a game plan, low-hanging fruits like short-term benefits versus longer-term benefits, and go and work on them. And have that as a goal, as a priority that you continue to work on throughout your career. Do we have time for questions?
So we have about 7 minutes for questions. We're going to take a few questions. Please, short questions, no statements. And any question that we cannot get to and you have, please send them to me or Ray, and we will share them with Michael, and he can answer later. Sorry, they're a little overdue. Yes. Yes, we'll share the slides and the recording, so you'll be able to access it. Okay, questions? Anything on WebEx? Nothing on WebEx.
Excellent talk. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So you mentioned at one place that try to solve problems as much as you can, but the time comes when you need to bring your manager in. And so when is that balance come in? When do you solve it on your own, at the same time bring the manager in at a certain point it doesn't get?
Yeah, it's, each case is different, and it's a balance. But the general rule of thumb that I have in mind is, what is the impact to my manager if he doesn't know, or if she doesn't know, or if this doesn't get done, if this problem continues to prolong, what's the impact to my manager? If it's like, okay, a lot, then it's time to bring them in. Sometimes you notice that it's beyond your scope of authority to get things done, if you pull them in. But before you do that, you let the team know that we need help, and I need to do this. So don't think that you're going behind the back.
I have a question back there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a really simple question. This book. Hello. Oh, is this book on Safari? Oh, we have the Safari subscription in our company. Just wondering, is this book on there as well?
It's on Amazon.com. I don't want to commit to anything yet, but I'm working with Amazon on this promotional program where you can get ebook for free. But don't hold me to that yet. I haven't.
I don't know what the process is to get on the Safari.
Right, so I don't.
We
know
can
that
check,
either,
but I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of that.
How do you promote yourself and still maintain humility?
It seems contradictory, doesn't it? It doesn't. The way I look at it, promoting yourself is sharing information, right? Sharing what you've done that other people may benefit. They may learn from you, and in the process, they may give you other ideas. So it's in the spirit of continuous improvement and helping your team and other people to improve themselves as well. Right? And there are ways to do. I talked about some of that here. If you don't have to stand there all day long, like pat your back and pat yourself on the back and like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Right? After a while, people will ignore you. But if you can demonstrate your achievements, your accomplishments, and better yet, have other people do it for you. I think that's the most effective way to do it.
I was wondering if you had any tips on negotiating for say when trying to change jobs, and any tips on battling imposter syndrome.
By imposter, do you mean somebody who tried to promote themselves without any substance?
No, imposter syndrome, as in you feel like you're an imposter regardless of whether or not you are.
So you're fake.
Not having the confidence in your abilities.
Oh, not having confidence in it. So first question first. Negotiation. I took a whole year on how to negotiate. It's a skill I would strongly recommend you to develop. To me, it's part of communications. Right? So how do you negotiate? That's a much longer discussion. I'll be happy to discuss with you. But in general, number one is try to reach win-win, and not I win, you lose, because in the long run it doesn't work. People are not going to work with you. Right? And two, be creative and open to options. Sometimes we think, oh, I have a solution. Let's agree to this. But you haven't explored other options yet. Sometimes in business dealings where your counterpart wants something and tells you, okay, this is what I want, but it turns out it may not be. Right? So you have to understand, find out what their needs are so that you can have options. So the way to do it is, the rule of negotiation is find out as much information as you can about the other person, because that will help you think of ways to structure a win-win situation. Right? Don't jump to conclusions. Right? Spend time, find out as much as you can about that person. And it applies to job promotion. It applies to when you get a job offer. Right? Salary is not the only thing. Right? There's salary, there's stock, there are other benefits that you can negotiate on. So, long story short.
We'll take one last question.
Yeah, I have a question about politics, right? So how do you hone your politics awareness and have your antennas up? Because a lot of times I felt that I'm not aware of things going on, but some of my colleagues are really, they pick up things so quickly and accurately.
Yeah. Did they ever get any work done? That's all they do. That's an excellent question. Some of us are just not wired that way. Unfortunately, I'm not wired that way. It's hard for me to kind of detect where the wind is blowing and stuff like that. But find people who are good at it that can help you, right? So if you have a friend who's kind of good at it, let you know what's going on. Right? Your mentor can help. Your mentor who has access into the discussion, know where the company is going, what changes are happening. They may not be able to tell you, like, okay, we're going to have a employment restructuring or something like that, but they can tell you what the strategy and other things are. If your job is related to salespeople, I don't know why, but they're really good at company politics. Sometimes they know more about what's going on in our business unit than we do. Right? So if you have connection to some of these salespeople and you talk to them once in a while, ask them. Right? And so through that process, you can kind of start building your skill, if you will, to be more cognizant and to be more observant of what's going on.
Okay, unfortunately we are out of time, so I want to thank Michael for coming and talking to us today. Thank you. And thank you all for coming and standing by. I sent the announcement for September. It's going to be more technical, future of wireless communication.